Well, thank you all for inviting me. And this is going to give a little bit more of a pessimistic view of what could happen.
Wait, I replaced everybody.
But you're replacing them, but we get all the fruits of it without doing anything. And I'm going to. Our paper gives a little bit of a negative view of what might happen. So the question is it possible? Is it likely that the AI and extending what's already happening to the social platforms will lead to a worse information ecosystem? So this is really very much of a general equilibrium problem that we're looking at, but general equilibrium within the supply of information in our society. And if there are these downsides, what are the channels by which this might happen? And that is sort of a guidance to what policy responses one might have. And we don't have time because of the strict page limit to have gone into the policy solutions, but maybe that's for a later day. So we're going to begin with a fairly simplistic view of the information ecosystem. Before AI, there were these producers, like newspapers, journals, online websites, that created content that added to the stock of knowledge and became a public good. We call that legacy media. And then we can think early on, producers largely reported the truth. Later, some found profit in misinformation, both for economic and strategic reasons. Murdoch was an example. He discovered that entertainment drew more eyeballs than actually providing news. And Fox discovered that appealing to your base was better than providing accurate information. But that's sort of the basic framework. And then the basic business model depended on attracting visits, generating revenue through ads. We'll talk about it as like eyeballs. And subscriptions or data collection, and we're not going to talk about that, but that's an obvious extension to what we're going to do. And then consumers visited producers to access information and benefited often at little or no direct cost. It was a system that worked, but worked imperfectly. Information is a public good, and one wouldn't think that a private provision of a public good would have any optimality properties. That's not the issue is, though, it worked, and that is to say, it produced information, So in this, when I say it worked, it provided a lot of information. But in some places, the system was beginning to fray, even before the advent of AI and social media. But now the system is collapsing. And this is, some discussions. How do we know AI is having an impact and social media are having impact? This is one area where what's happening is very dramatic. The number of reporters is going down very, very dramatically. The number of major media is going down dramatically. So we have evidence of a dramatic change. The question in some ways is, well, the system has gotten more efficient. Should we be that concerned about the fact that there's less producers of information if the system is overall becoming, or is in some ways becoming more efficient. And there are two basic drivers of the ideas behind what I'm going to talk about. I'll refer to it later. One, it was the old expression, GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. If you have an information system, no matter how good you are at processing and analyzing the information, if you don't have good data coming in, there's no way that you can have a good output. And the other one is the work of Grossman Stiglitz, which talked about how in financial markets, if we had perfectly efficient financial markets, no one would gather any information. And so it was great that people in Chicago celebrated that the financial markets were perfectly efficient, but if that hypothesis were true, which was not, but if it were true, the only stuff that you would see on the financial market would be garbage. So that's not a good information system. So it's trying to look at those kinds of questions in the context of a model that captures some aspects of AI and the social media. So how will AI affect the information ecosystem? Well, we identify 4 effects. It improves information dissemination. That's sort of analogous to the informational efficiency of financial markets. But at the same time, it endangers the producer business model because it steals eyeballs away from the legacy producers. But another aspect is not all information that's produced is truthful. You just think of Fox News. So there are lies, and it's often difficult to detect lies. So we model that as saying lowers the cost of producing lies, deep fakes relative to truth. And then something we call the drone war effect. It simultaneously increases the ability to detect lies, but also increases the ability not to be detected because it understands the detection process. And so the point of this paper is to develop a tractable model that can provide an equilibrium analysis of the information flows. So the intuition behind this paper, and gives a little bit of guidance to where policy ought to go, is that with the appropriate legal framework, without an appropriate legal framework in IPR, AI and social media may undermine the business model of producers of information, so less information will be produced. And this is important. In certain areas, like understanding the ever-evolving economy, it is important to have current and accurate information about critical variables describing the system. And this sort of fits in with some of the discussion we had in the previous section. What kind of information problem are you addressing? If you're analyzing the problems in chemistry, the chemistry of the universe is not changing. But if you're analyzing the social economic system or even a virus, there's always evolution going on, and you have to know the state of the system. So you need to have current information if you're going to know what to do. And it's that very important part of what we want to know about that we're focusing on here. It's where flows of information about the state of the system become critical. Though information that is produced will be analyzed and disseminated more efficiently, with poor new information entering the information ecosystem, the quality of the information ecosystem will deteriorate. So let me describe the model very, very quickly. There are going to be producers of information, consumers, and then in between there are going to be these intermediaries, the AI firms, the social technology platforms. So on the producers, there's a continuum of producers. They produce a flow of information, And there are two kinds of producers. We can obviously enrich it. Those that produce lies and those that produce truth. But whether firms produce lies or truth is an endogenous variable. That's a decision variable. And then we can think of the stock of information in the system, of truth in the system, lies in the system, as described by a simple differential equation. Information that you've accumulated in the past depreciates because it becomes less relevant as the world changes. So that's the notion of depreciation. We can model it more sophisticated. And the addition to information at any point is the sum of the information produced by all firms. That's an additive formulation. You could obviously have formulations where this says there's no duplicative research, no complementary information, and again, it's something that we can obviously generalize. Consumers, again, we have two groups of consumers. There are the informed, and the informed people are those who cautiously screen between lies and truth. Again, we can endogenize spending on screening, but here we just take it as exogenous. And the rest are uninformed, and they can't tell a lie versus the truth, and at least at the time of acquisition. So then we get an equation, which is the eyeballs equation. How many minutes do you spend acquiring information? And sort of like the demand function. And it's going to be a function of the flow of information, so how much information is available that's new, and your valuation. And your valuation, we assume, is a function of the stock of information that you already have. And then there's another parameter, which gamma, which is captures, it's really a vector, but we'll talk about it in various ways, the efficiency of the information system. So that's where AI allows you to process information, or technology platforms lowers the cost of acquisition of information. And a simple rule here where if you're acquiring information, your eyeballs are attracted in proportion to the fraction of news that's being produced. And for the informed people, they only focus their eyes on truth, and the uninformed people look at all the information and they can't tell the differences. So any producer gets the fraction of the flow of new news relative to the total that is produced. And then there's one more parameter that is important, and that is consumers can either go to the producers or they can go to these intermediaries. They can go to ChatGPT, or they can go to get information from social media. And so, and the legacy media only makes money from eyes that are going to news directly. So 1 minus lambda tries to capture the notion that, and again, it's an endogenous variable. We treat it here as exogenous, but then, implicitly it is being affected by the technology that we're confronting. So then, yes, we have a very simple revenue function. The revenue function for any producer is a function of the number of minutes that people spend on their media. So that drives the ads. And then, next one, yeah. And as one would have thought, you write down the revenue function, and the next thing, go on, the next one. I'll do it, okay. And you have the cost function. Let me say the cost function captures what I said in the beginning, that it's a function of how much truthful news and how much lies you produce. And it's easier to produce lies than truthful information. And the cost function reflects that if there's more, if you know more, it may cost you less to produce. On the other hand, if you know more, knowing more, and Q here is sort of the information in the ether. If there's more knowledge, you're better at acquiring information, but the low-hanging fruit have disappeared. So there's two forces going on in different directions, and we talk how one might balance those. Yeah, there. Okay. Oh wait. 4 minutes. Okay. So let me go. As one might have thought, you maximize this. You get decisions about how much information of each type to produce, the result of all this is that there are three types of equilibria that can emerge, depending on the parameters of the model. You know, and the fraction of informed and uninformed, the fraction of time that they're spending on going to producers, the relative cost of producing lies versus truth. So given these parameters, the three equilibria are a truthful equilibrium, a world where you have a mixture of lies and truth, and a world in which you basically do not produce any truthful information. So we call that information collapse. And and the comparative statics are just what you would have thought, that if the cost of lies goes up, you produce more lies in a mixed equilibrium. If there are more informed people, you produce more truthful information. So there wasn't anything very surprising, but I think maybe this chart shows the equilibrium where the steady state in the system is where the production of new news just compensates for the depreciation of the old news, okay? So that's the steady state of the dynamics. And we give an argument why it might look like that. It could have more complicated, but there's an initial convex section that reflects, in a way, the Randers-Stiglitz result of the non-concavity, of the value, fundamental non-concavity in the value information. And if you have a shape like that, what is interesting is two things. One, if you have a improvement in the efficiency of the information efficiency in transmission or in analysis, but this is first in transmission, what you see is the equilibrium level of knowledge will go down. And it's a quite general result. If you then want to ask, does the information ecosystem gotten better or worse, there are two effects going on. And we illustrate that much of the discussion that you hear in the celebration of the wonders of better technology is that at our current information equilibrium. Obviously, better technologies are better, and the information ecosystem gets better. That's the movement to A to B. But if the result of it is that we actually accumulate less information, that's the movement from A to C, and the quality of information ecosystem is actually worsened. And so I've been told I have to stop, but the rest of the analysis is really in the same spirit. AI puts everything that we've learned from social media on steroids, and not only leads to a lower level of information, a larger proportion of lies, and further reason why the information ecosystem gets worse. So I think this is the dystopia that I think we're going towards.
Well, on that note, thank you very much. Our discussant is Wei. You have 10 minutes.
Yeah, thank you very much for organizing this conference and for inviting me. It's a great honor to read this, to be here, and I'm very happy to read the paper, and it offers us a very timely framework to think about this question, which is a first-order question. So the question is, how do AIs and platforms reshape the production, the composition, namely the truth-lie mix, and the credibility of information? So what this framework is highly tractable. Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. So it offers us a very tractable framework. And what's most interesting is this idea of a coexistence of the truth-lie equilibrium. So the platform is going to change platform intermediation is going to change the fraction of diverse attention from people's visit to websites and therefore reduce incentive to produce information. And it also shifts screening, namely how many people are informed, how many people are not informed, and the cause of lies. So these are, within this framework, I want to, briefly push on three things. The first one is we would like to know whether it's dystopia or utopia. We want to think about a quantitative effect, namely which region. So if we think about using this framework, which region shall lead to net information loss? So will there be a threshold or some characterizations? Some of this can be quantified, as I will mention some of the empirical papers, and perhaps we could get a more clear quantitative answer as to this question. Secondly, I also want to talk about AI's effect on, so there's a qualitative difference as well, namely on the misinformation and the strategic disinformation. So because AI lowers the cost of producing high quality fakes, high quality and high-quality deep fakes or personalized targeting and amplify the reach. So lastly, I want to briefly ask about some questions about policy and welfare, namely what kind of perhaps some of the liability or reputational mechanisms or some of the attribution laws. So let me focus on the first point. The first point is a quantitative effect. So namely here, the dynamics, as Joe has just mentioned, is that each of the truths and the lies evolves by itself. And of course, in the dynamic model, gradually the new information comes in and the old information depreciates. So the mechanism, the quantitative effect holds throughout all the equilibria that you mentioned. That is, because intermediation is going to divert attention, AI is going to shift returns attention, returns of consumers' attention to news. And there's a trade-off. So namely, on the one hand, the better and the vast quantity of AI-provided information is going to have a readership expansion effect. But on the other hand, there's a business stealing effect. And clearly, we can see under some parameter regions, the business stealing effect is going to dominate and leads to a reduction in the total lower steady state information. Now, we do have some evidence on this. So in particular, I want to shout out to A.C. Mobier's Pulse paper that even so that the loss for publishers can dominate, especially for smaller publishers. So secondly, I want to point out that AI is not just a parameter shifter. I think of it also have a qualitative effect. Namely, it's going to the fact that it can produce high fidelity and highly targeted deceptions going to make this deception, disinformation much harder to detect, and they are also going to micro-target audiences who are most vulnerable to such information. In particular, in my work with Yutan, we talk about, for example, personalized targeting, how that's going to, the strategic competition among these producers are going to endogenously target different segments of the population, different segments of the network, and is going to cause endogenous without any other reason, just endogenous cause polarization. And we have some evidence about misinformation in the financial market and foreign market that they measurably move the market, and the worst performing forms are more likely to generate misinformation. So I would wonder if there could be some minimum tweaks to the model. For example, a continuous quality variable about instead of this dichotomy between truth and lie, and targeting choice. So targeting choice is so the exposure is not proportional. For example, I could target people who are more uninformed much more than others, and because I could grab their attention much more easily. The next thing, of course, is on broader. So this is a dystopia effect that Joe was mentioning. So all this was not just about some businesses, about how many clicks or eyeballs business get. This is about impact on public beliefs, on trust, and on our, the society response. So because attention is a common pool, all this misinformation and the high quality disinformation to crowd out all the truth. And also this is further exacerbated because algorithms are great at reallocating attention. So with this in mind, we could imagine the echo chamber phenomena become worse and worse, namely, the filters are going to steer the consumers to their favorite content, regardless of whether truthful or not. So we could imagine design levels, so policy designs, for example, from probabilistic sharings. So for example, when we share, we don't just do like and like, we say, well, I like this, but I only have 70% confidence that this is true, and so on and so forth. In order to we have evidence that probabilistic sharing improves the quality of the information passed on. We could also have platform constraints. For example, in the recent bidding on the ads, we could imagine we have regulatory constraint on the target cross-platform. Just because Meta owns several different platforms, may not be encouraged to use all the platforms in order to charge and design ad price. Lastly, so I want to talk about, just briefly mention the idea of policy and welfare. So this is a tremendously complex question, and I want to mention that this question has popped up again and again in various countries in various framework. For example, EU's Act 15 has clear constraint on how much AI could manipulate and how they should attribute information. Canada also have a law regarding C18 regarding whether whether the platforms and aggregators should pay the individual news agencies, in order to to avoid the business stealing effect. So all this just saying that we are really in need of some of this policy response. So as Joe mentioned, we could imagine a Planner's benchmark model where it maximizes the long-run well-being of a representative consumer. Basically, because this framework is so tractable and is so convenient to use, we could talk about how do we link the welfare to the parameters. And many of these parameters, we do have empirical ways to measure and to identify them. So for example, one of the targets would be what is a socially optimal level of platform intermediation. So that would be a very good thing to have. And Joe already talked about several the policy instruments. So for example, we could subsidize production. We could regulate access or attribution laws, or we could even tax intermediaries, as many of these countries are attempting to do. So again, I just want to say that looking forward, I feel that this model gives us a really clear, a very timely framework to connect theory. And it's not just economic theory. I feel that many of these points we mentioned also has connection to platform design, to computer science, to auction pricing, to to policy science, on many other fields. So hopefully that this framework could be used to to connect theory to all these evolving challenges and opportunities. Thank you.